Going back 3 or 4 months now, we've been talking a lot about how Blizzard can actually help fix the problem about Mythic Plus levers. I made like a 45-minute rant on all of my ideas, and that was back when Blizzard actually said that they are thinking about doing it. We were talking about it on stream this week, so I wanted to make a video kind of showing you guys my thought process on this and asking for you guys' thoughts on this as well, and whether or not you think this would be actually a good solution or a bad solution. Because honestly, I am like going back and forth on it. It's really hard for me to say one way or the other for sure. We've suggested the currency, a bunch of different ideas that are like kind of playing up to the strengths of what Mythic Plus are right now. People have been suggesting things like punishment for years. There's actually a recent trend that Blizzard has looked at and that is likely going to guide their hand in developing this moving forward. And that is actually solo queue and PvP. My thoughts are that the way they will fix this problem is simply add a solo queue system to Mythic Plus. Just saying that out loud makes me think like, wow, why did I say that out loud? They're not going to do that. But I would have said the same thing about PvP. It sounds absurd. It doesn't sound like it fixes the problem, but it actually does on a few levels. And I'm going to tell you why I think that's what they will do. And then I'll give you my actual opinions on it in a second. So if they did a solo queue for Mythic Plus, what would actually happen was you would just be putting your key into the system, and then Blizzard would be forming a group for you, just like any type of matchmaking system in WoW and especially in PvP. The difference there would be, though, instead of like the matchmaking ranking, you'd be being congregated by the Mythic Plus scoring system. There'd obviously be like a lot of gray area about like how they would handle that. Like, should you play with people who are within 50 score or within 100 score, within 25 score? Like, who knows how they would handle it? The big issue for me, though, immediately with the actual system is like what actually goes on with keystones. Do you need to be the leader, and do you get any say into the grouping of it at all? But then if they did do something like this, then they could actually do like the punishments or the systems where there's like rules about actually forming and ending the group. People have been suggesting all types of things over the years. I've seen every possible suggestion, I feel like. And unfortunately, the reason I do think that they're probably considering this the most is because so many people say stuff like this. People constantly like it's like baby's first opinion on Mythic Plus levers. There should be punishment. And it's not that it's a bad opinion. It's just that people didn't fully think it through and they just say it. And they don't realize that in order for there to be punishment, they need this system. So you're basically asking Blizzard to develop Mythic Plus solo queue. But like we were saying, like more concretely, Blizzard's like in the practice of just listening to the community and just doing whatever the most like loudest, I guess, like the highest percentage of people are telling them to do. This seems to be like the most obvious thing, because like people were asking for this from PvP perspective for years. Like it had been something people were asking for forever. I do not follow a single PvP discussion. So if you guys are in any type of PvP space, is it working? Do people like it? So my opinions on this system is that this is not the correct way to handle it. I've talked about this a million times, but TLDR, I think the way to solve the leaving problem is to not put up like these confines and cages and make these people do things that they don't necessarily want to do. You have to change what they want to do psychologically. I would rather a system where you give a currency for finishing every key, and that currency can be used to somehow improve your keys, do something that will help your progression for doing somebody else's key even to completion. The goal with my idea is to change their priority from just upgrading keys and getting score to finishing keys no matter what. So they get something from finishing every key. That's the goal. Then people will start caring about just doing keys, and score will come underneath that. By Blizzard doing like a solo queue system, nothing else would need to change, right? Like in theory, you would think like they just make the system and everything works the exact same way right now. And then if you do something selfish, like then you could have the vote to disband. Then, you know, if anybody does something or acts out in a way that is not within the rules of creating this group and forming and ending this group, then that person would be punished and there would be some kind of scaling punishment. Besides that, my opinion is just this is not going to actually really solve anybody's problem. It's actually kind of scary how the community has just become totally self-absorbed. There's players out there who just like literally do not regard other players as equals to them. And a system like this is just going to make them feel more like that. I feel like it's just going to dig the trenches even further, because at least when you're pugging your own key and you're putting up the group and you're able to decide who you pick, you have some agency there. But if every every single group you do in this solo queue system is made for you, you're now going to start lashing out at Blizzard as well. So you're going to have people who now resent the group before they even start. Like in the situation we have right now, at least something has to happen before the Mythic Plus key starts to get hostile. It's very rare that somebody like wants to leave before you put the keystone in. That does happen. We have a few videos of that on the channel, but for the most part, somebody actually has to do something offensive, quote unquote, to them before it starts. Now they'll like form the group because Blizzard puts people together. They got 2 hunters in the group and the other guys just like, oh, I'm not playing with 2 hunters, right? And then people keep talking about like the benefits or the detriments of a system where there's a actual punishment. Some people are just not going to care about the punishment. So you got to think about what that's going to look like, right? And so like common things are like, oh, they're going to just like go AFK, or they're going to somehow hold the group hostage or prevent a vote or whatever, you know, whatever they ended up doing. People like automatically jump to these extremes. Like, well, don't even consider that because there's really crazy people out there who are going to waste their own time just to spite somebody else. And honestly, the system just kind of creates that. Like, that's why I'm saying like this does just not really solve that issue. It's better than nothing. And I do think this is probably what they're going to do. Not because it's a good system, but just because people basically are asking for it constantly. Maybe people don't fully get it, but like they cannot just add a punishment to the way the groups are made right now. It just doesn't work that way. You can make a group for any reason under any circumstances. You could have 5 people who are all together. You could have 1 person. Like you can literally go do a Mythic Plus key alone. So Blizzard would need to actually add some structure to how the groups are formed in order to then add some structure to how the groups are not like are unformed, you know? But I've been trying to think about what the world would look like if they did have that system. And I think it would be like a coexisting thing. Like there'd still be the regular Mythic Plus pugging, and that would just be something that nobody really did anymore unless you really wanted to do your own key under your circumstances, or you just wanted to like go in like a non-viable group, like you wanted to go 2-man a key or something like that. Really, pugging is not a system. It's an extension of what the system currently is, really. Like you just put your key in and it starts. That's how it works right now. But in the solo queue system, you wouldn't even put your key in. You would basically like offer the key up to the gods of the system, and then the system would form the group for you, and then there would probably be some like 30-second countdown, and then the key would start on its own. Just like in a PvP match, right? Like you don't have like once you get accepted into a battleground or an arena, it's starting no matter what. If you're not ready, then you're just out. This would likely require them to change Mythic Plus fundamentally, though. We already said like about the keystone. Like obviously the keystone would probably have to change because I don't think anybody would put theirs up. So I'm thinking like a side effect of this could actually be huge for the system. Things that I'm thinking about them having to change would include the keystone not depleting. I think this would be like the #1 fix to a lot of problems as well. So it makes me wonder, like if they did do the solo queue system, would I even have the same keystone? It might be a different keystone because people are constantly talking about it in PvP, where solo queue for PvP is actually a different rating system. And I think that would probably happen here too. I think it would be its own score. It's the quickest, like the easiest way to get in and do a group. And it would become like the predominant talking point. Like, you know, you'd be looking at that score instead of your actual pugging and progression score. But I do think like in order for Blizzard to do this, like the foundational idea has to change. There has to be better affixes, better equity amongst the affixes of how it's handled, who can deal with it. If you have an affix that has to be dispelled and you have 3 DPS who can't dispel it, you're done. Like the key is pretty much over at that point. So maybe people will finally get their wish and they'll either just be like less affixes or maybe even like no affixes in the solo queue system. Like who knows? Like they could do something really radical here. The more I think about it, the more I think like this is actually a ton of work though. And I really wish Blizzard would not do this simply because it's so much work. Fixing this system does not require tons of man hours from Blizzard. In my opinion, I think they could easily fix it by just flipping the psychology of your average lever over into wanting to do keys, not necessarily just wanting to do time keys. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do think it would not be that hard to do. And it's something that's already in the game. Like there's already currency to already get stuff when you finish the keys. So they just need to do that, and they need to fix this hook. We made a video on this loophole where people are leaving keys because they feel like it's hurting their progression if it shows up on their Radar IO sheet. If they just patch a few of these problems out, then there's not really going to be as much of a reason to ever leave a key again. And that would just solve so much of the problems. You'd have so much less of these people saying like, you're wasting my time because you failed and this is now not in time. All of a sudden you'd be saying like, okay, well, that sucks that we didn't get score, but I do want to get this currency so I can use this to protect my key or upgrade my key or, you know, whatever else Blizzard wants to do. I'm willing to give them my system, give it to them fully, let them ask me questions. I can consult on it. I'll do anything I can to help the system. But yeah, I do think the solo queue thing would probably be the most likely way they would do it. It's been a common talking point, so I wanted to make a video on it. Let me know what you guys think about this idea. Do you think you would like this idea? What are your immediate concerns for this idea? Do you think this would be a good fix, like a hard fix for actual levers? Do you think the punishments and the rigors of going into like a dungeon finder type situation would be enough to turn people off? Do you think it would solve the problem permanently? Do you think it would give you some closure on this? Let me know all your guys' thoughts on this. Otherwise, stay tuned. We got more funny videos. I know we said we were done with the serious videos, but we do have a lot to talk about right now, man. So thank you for watching. We will see you guys in the next video.